All right, CRP and Central, this is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe. It helps the mission more than you know so that I can do more for you. Happy Monday, everyone. Happy April. Did you have a good Easter? How was Easter? Did you have good family time? Any really cool Easter traditions that y'all do? Let us know in the comments if you'd like. So, welcome to TrialSide Chats. This is Dr. Fox. This is the place for the CRPN community and really the clinical research community to come together, talk about clinical research finance, maybe share some stories, best practices, learn from each other so that we can try to advance this industry to a level of better quality and maybe a reduced level of toxicity. That would be amazing. Whew, what a week. So, just so you know, I am currently the interim director at a research site right now. It's been a little bit of time, but it is so refreshing, everyone. And I mean refreshing to sit there and be able to see what a research site does for the community, for the patients, when it instills hope. Sometimes people don't have hope anymore. And then research comes in, and all of a sudden, an impossible situation is a possible situation. And it is very inspiring. If you're like one of those professionals and you're like, oh, I used to work at a site 10 years ago, and then I moved up the ladder and I haven't seen a site since, why don't you try to go back to your roots? Go back and consent a patient or see a patient, or in some cases, go watch a patient's journey as they try to get that stipend that was promised to them for so long for being in research, only to see systems fail, to see patient frustration, to really see the reason why we are in this industry. So, we've got a really cool show for you today, everyone. It's going to be a little different, but I think it's going to be pretty fun. So, all right. So, welcome to the forum. Full disclosure, and I say this every single time, I'm not a lawyer. I never said I was going to be a lawyer. This is strictly a culmination of all of the experiences that have been observed as a result of the industry. Please watch this, listen to it, and importantly, choose to follow anything that you learn here at your own risk. If, and a big if, you need a lawyer, if you need an attorney, if you are in a situation where you're like, oh my gosh, do you know any good attorneys, especially in clinical research? Edens, Science Law, edlaw.com. Contact Edie, tell her Dr. Fox sent you, and let her know that Dr. Fox said that in his opinion, Edie is the best of the best in this industry as far as attorneys go. You're my favorite, Edie. Big hugs to you. And thank you so much for what you do for our sites. If you do not agree to this disclaimer, please shut the video off now. I don't need the views. I don't need the likes. I need you to be safe and comfortable in this industry. All right, ground rules. And P.S., if you ever want to come on to CRP and Central and share your voice, this is an open mic. I haven't had a guest yet. You want to be the first one? Come on in. Let's start talking about clinical research. Edie almost came, but she was on vacation when that happened. So, Edie, the invite's still out there if you're watching. So, we're going to talk anything finance. We're going to talk very, very sensitive subjects. So, as a result, this has to be confidential, everyone. And by confidential, I mean we're not talking names. We're not talking organizations. We're only talking concepts. We're not pointing fingers. And so if we treat these as concepts and case studies instead of a giant blaming match on a stakeholder, my objective is so that we can learn from each other, identify something from a very, very sensitive topic, and maybe help to improve best practices. I'm going to say best practices again because I've got some really cool news for you today. But we'll be identifying best practices in the industry so we can help each other. All right, icebreaker. So, how many of you have ever been on a negotiation where you do the negotiation, you send a counter offer, Excel spreadsheet, Word document, whatever, you do your letter of justification, you do everything you're supposed to do. And what's the very, very first thing that paper pusher tells you on the other end? You know what they say? They say, oh, thanks so much. I'm going to forward this to the team to take a look, right? There's a team. There's a team over in CRO world where they're going to take your documents, they're going to dissect it completely, and they are going to work as a team to try to figure out how to have that site accept the lowest possible budget. All kinds of strategies, but here in the icebreaker, what we're going to focus on is the team. Do not ever, never, ever, ever negotiate alone. If it is you versus a world, an army of professionals who do this thousands of times, dedicated to try to get you to accept the lowest possible budget, don't do that alone, ever. Never make it so it's you versus a bunch of people. You have to build a team as well for quality, for support, for multiple eyes on a document. Maybe there's different perspectives. Whatever it is, you may have a key lead negotiator, and that's okay, but you need a team, everyone. Build that financial ethics committee, build a negotiation team, build a budget team. I don't care what you call it, but get some help internally, externally, whatever it is. Build a team and make sure that every time that you're sending that counter for that negotiation, let them know that your team put that together. It is not just one person with an opinion. This is a team of people who put together a negotiation and send it to the CRO. That has a lot of really good benefits. So form that committee. Do not negotiate alone. There's the icebreaker. I regretted it as soon as I clicked the button. Sincere apologies to everyone. All right, here's the book. So we are going to be discussing the book. This book was published in August, and it has already been invited and accepted as a book of curriculum at colleges and universities around the country for clinical research administration and finance. It's a big honor, and thank you so much for every single one of those universities who are supporting the CRPN mission and to helping to give our future generations the information that they need to succeed in this industry, the expectations that sites, sponsors, and CROs can have with each other so that we can have a better kind of experience. There's a QR code that sends you to Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon, or if you'd like to contact CRPN directly, 10% off the book, free shipping. I'll even sign it for you if you want. But the point is, you have help out there, and nobody should be going at this alone. All right, today we finished, let's see, last time we finished CDAs, NDAs. Now we have a legally binding document that says that we can keep secrets with sponsors and CROs. We're good to go. Let's start sharing information. And I see a comment. Thank you so much. Hey, Jess, how's it going? Does anyone have experience with Trial Pro and Upsite Clinical? Jesse, that's a very, very good point. Have you talked to David yet? I know the Upsite folks. I know that they do a very, very good job. I haven't talked to him in a while, though. I wonder how Upsite is doing. Upsite, if you hear this, let's see if we can't get Jesse the information that he needs. Trial Pro, I'll need more information on that one. I need to try to figure out who's running that one. All right, it's time to keep a secret, everyone. Are you ready? Sites, sponsors, CROs. Now we are going to start learning about each other in this relationship. We're going to start taking feasibilities, questionnaires that are filled out by sites for sponsors and CROs to identify if that site is a good and possible candidate for your clinical trial. So this happens in a number of ways. Most of the time, it's after the CDA is signed and the NDA is signed. That person, whoever did that, they're probably going to send like some kind of an email with a link next to it. And that link is going to send a site to like an HTML format, maybe like a Survey Monkey, a Google Sheets, a specialized whatever data grabber, so that the sponsor and CRO ask the site for very, very specific questions on the needs and the capabilities of that site for that trial. And I say for that trial very loosely. Sometimes CROs it gets kind of weird, but they'll send out a feasibility questionnaire just as like an early put your feelers out there before there's even a trial at hand, just so that we can try to get a head start on the feasibility. And we're going to talk about that because in some ways, from my perspective and what I've seen, It's almost like CROs are kind of taking advantage of sites. They're taking advantage of their desire to do a trial, even if CROs don't yet have a trial to offer, because they're using all of that free work and information from the site to actually build their RFP, their request for proposal. It's very, very common that CROs will go out there and have sites fill out questionnaires so they can get the RFP. So then they will be awarded the opportunity from the sponsor to run the trial. And then they'll go back to the sites and sometimes make them even do another feasibility because honestly, they get paid for it. But on the other side of it is, and we've run into this situation, we had a site who performed a general questionnaire feasibility on the same exact trial for two different CROs. They were competing for the RFP, and we're sitting here like, I swear we just did this feasibility. What's going on here? And then we realized it was the same exact trial, but two totally different CROs. So maybe that's the first thing I might say, sites, is when you are asked to fill out these things, pay very close attention on if there's even a trial at hand, or if you are volunteering your information to the CRO so they can get their RFP award. And it has nothing to do with a business opportunity for you, the site who is providing the information. Just remember that. So feasibilities are pretty much an interview, like a discussion. They'll call you, have a conversation, or a questionnaire designed to identify if a research site is a good fit for a sponsor trial. Like I said, those are the feasibilities you really want to fill out. But on the other side, it's also a really good opportunity for sites to identify if a sponsor's trial is a good opportunity for them. Yes, that's right, everyone. Feasibility goes both ways. This is a discussion so that a site can see if a trial opportunity is a good fit for them. It may not be. And finally, the feasibility can they can assess the interest of key stakeholders. So it's kind of like one of those, it's pretty much a job interview. So you're filling out a job application. You may have a preliminary job interview. Imagine this as a higher level order interview so that you can figure out if this is a good fit. Is this going to be a good professional relationship between the site and whoever the site is working with, whether it's directly with the sponsor or whether it's a CRO? So, um, what do you think? How do you feel about feasibilities, everyone? What have you done? If you haven't checked out CRP and Central, the podcast, the audio only podcast, we did an excellent round on feasibilities that you might want to listen to help you expand into this topic. So, one of the things that I like to do for sites, especially when it comes to feasibilities, because you're going to run into those PIs or CEOs or leaders, administrators, they just want to treat feasibilities like a clown car. That's some kind of a metric of success for them. We filled out this many feasibilities successfully. And because their metric is all about the throughput, they waste a lot of time. And I mean a lot of time. They're, oh, that's my bragging rights. We filled out 100 feasibilities this quarter. Okay, but how much of that was wasted time because it was really not a good opportunity for business? So as a result, it might be good in your site to create a standard, so to speak. In other words, you go through this feasibility and it's like a checkoff list. And if these checkpoints are not satisfied, stop the feasibility immediately because you would be wasting so many more resources on the back end downstream than if you just cut it off right away. So just that's one thing for all of the clown car CEOs over there who are just trying to cram in feasibilities. You're wasting a lot of resources here, guys. Focus on assign resources only to the things that could convert into a business opportunity, and you would be much, much better off than just bragging about the increased numbers of feasibilities that you performed. So follow these rules. This is on page 46 if you have the book. This is kind of like an internal checkpoint system where if you're in the middle of the feasibility and you run into no on any of these at all, just stop, cut it loose because you're going to be wasting time afterward. Number one, does the trial adhere to the site's ethics? Ooh, ethics for the treatment of patients in the mission. Does your site have an ethical mission? Why are you open? And If you are open, are you applying this logic to every single one of the trials that go through at your site? Let me give you an example. And this is where I can't tell you how many times there are trials that go through that are unethical. They may have IRB approval, but when you really start looking at them and what they do, hey, everyone, I've had a little bit of a technical difficulty. It looks like my camera went out. If you can still hear me and you'd be willing to type in the chat, I'd really appreciate it. I'll be trying to troubleshoot this as we go. But on that note, if you can't see me, that's okay. I don't mind going or continuing. Um, so, do you have a level of ethics at your site? Have you ever run into an unethical clinical trial? And I'll wait for someone to comment on that if needed. All right, Mitch. Hey, Mitch, thanks so much. All right, so this is how things work, everyone. It looks like my camera is shot. So you won't be able to see me, but honestly, I think that's okay. I don't blame some of you. So we have the ethics. On the other side, does the site PI who we're working with, are they appropriately experienced? Are they interested in performing the trial? Is this something they actually want to do? They're going to have to put their neck out on the line. And is it something they want to do? Uh, Next one, does the site have the relevant and appropriate patient population? So that's huge in feasibilities. We're going to identify that. But if you don't have access to the patient populations that are required to succeed, it's probably not going to be a good trial for you. That's all there is to it. So, you just have to be honest with yourself. You really, really want the opportunity, you want the contract, whatever it might be, but you don't want to waste everyone's time. Does the site have the resources, like the staff, the expertise, the equipment, supply? Like every single trial is different. Are you have the capability to be in an oncology clinic or a trial? Um, so that's major big deal here. Sometimes there are trials that have certain requirements that sites do not have, and are you willing to invest in that? I mean, sometimes that's okay. You can say, yeah, we don't have this yet, but this is something that we're willing to invest in prior to award. That's very, very common, especially in things like minus 80s or any kind of a hood or equipment that might be needed. That the site's so interested in the trial that they're fine just saying, yes, this is fine. We can do that. And finally, given the experiences, um, especially with the sponsors and the CROs, can this trial be performed? This is a big one. So if you're sitting here and you're saying, we've worked with the sponsor or the CRO in the past, and we know exactly how hard it is to work with them. Maybe they don't pay things on time. Maybe they're really bad responders. Maybe they break their promises. They breach contract. Maybe it's just not a good fit. Maybe we don't like what they did with an amendment later on that we know they're known for. This is a big deal, and if you feel as though it's not going to be a healthy financial relationship, it's probably not a great idea to continue with that feasibility. All right, so now let's go into kind of like the drill down of feasibilities. This is on page 48. And generally the feasibilities, they go into a routine. Once you've filled out a few, you can kind of get the scope of them. And it gets almost repetitive. And so for any of you who have been in the industry for a while, do you remember any vendors or anyone out there who tried to solve the repetition and feasibility process? Do you remember any of the original ones? Do you remember any certain Chrome extensions that were produced that would help with remembering feasibilities for rapid creation? This is a big nut that has been cracked and then reformed, and then some things got more advanced, and then some ideas disappeared. But um, in general, you're going to have questions about your staff. Tell me about your PI. Show me your PI CV. Show me the experience of your coordinators. Show them below. What kind of staffing do you have, and how many trials are you currently running? In other words, are you going to have the bandwidth, or do you feel as though there's going to be a competing trial in the mix? Then your reputation. How many trials of this indication have you performed? How was your enrollment on those trials? And here's a big one. Sites, I hope you never ever have to say yes to this. Has your site ever received an FDA warning letter 483? That itself is a question where if you ever do receive a 483, you can still get the trial, but you're going to have to go through a whole other round of questioning afterward. So, how good is your site at performing this specific trial? You're going to be looking at capabilities. So, does your site have access to, and then all of these different things that your site might need to perform this trial? Refrigeration, centrifugation, freezing. Do you have a laminar flow or a biosafety cabinet? How are you doing with certain labs, lab kits? Do you have the ability to ship things, collect things, store things? Do you have credentials, certifications, whatever it is on a capability level, especially technology? That's another big one. They're going to start asking you about that. And then once they know about your staff, your reputation, and your capabilities, then they're going to start to do the drill down questions. And these are about your patients. What access to patients does your site have? How many patients are in your database? So we're going to start there. Start at the big global. Let's tell me how many patients you have in a database. How many can you access? And then once you know the full globe, let's drill down a little bit more. Of these patients, how many have the certain indication of the trial that we're looking at? And then of those patients, let's drill down even more. How many might be qualified according to the IE criteria, according to the summary? That's assuming sites that you have the summary on hand. And then finally, of these, how many does your site think it can recruit per month? Well, there you go. They want an answer from you on what you think you can do for their trial. That is always the $1 million final nail in the coffin question of every feasibility. So that's pretty much the one part that everyone is paying attention to. Sometimes it's a total amount of patients, like given everything that you know about this trial, the summary, the needs, and your patient population, how many can you put on this trial? Sometimes it's an overall number, and sometimes it's some kind of a rate, number of patients per week, per month, whatever it might be. Sites, I have to tell you that one right there, the drill down number, how many can you do? That is what many, many sponsors and CROs will try to come back and haunt you with. They're going to say, oh, but according to your feasibility, you were able to enroll this, and that's not what happened. And they try to hold it against you. And we'll have a conversation later about that in another time. All right, so best practices for feasibilities. First, this is what we said last time. You are sharing substantial information with sponsors and CROs when it comes to feasibility sites. Make sure that one, you have a CDA, NDA in place. That would be nice. You don't just start volunteering this information to someone on the street. These are your patient populations, your processes, and you need to make sure that they are protected with the people that you share them with, including your consumers. Because you know what they're going to be doing with it? They're going to be putting it in their database and selling it to sponsors. And when you have a CDA and NDA in place, make sure, absolutely sure, it is a two-way mutual CDA NDA. You don't want to sign what they call a one-way CDA where you promise to keep the CRO sponsor secrets, but they don't have to keep yours. Not a good idea. And that's just from experience. If you want to confirm it, go talk to Edie Edens. She has a really good opinion about confidentiality notices. Ask questions. For crying out loud, you are exploring an opportunity to make a really, really big professional relationship and commitment with really, really big companies. Be sure that you can ask some questions about the trial when you do these feasibilities. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's just an HTML survey. You go in, fill out. You don't have any kind of a feedback mechanism. You just spit them in some content. But it's really important that you think about that. Don't volunteer data without a trial at stake. Again, it's very, very common. CROs will go in there, try to get sites to fill out information out of hopes of getting a trial when the CRO doesn't even have the trial yet. This is a common practice sites. So make sure that when you're doing these exploratory surveys, make sure there's a trial at stake. I would not recommend just giving your data to a CRO so that they can hopefully get some business. And that's something to think about. Um, so everyone, it's very, very common in feasibilities, and sponsors know it. You're not fooling them at all. It's common to bloat your numbers. I can get this many patients. It's a giant inflation. You're not kidding anybody. And it's this really, really weird situation where many sites believe that if they don't bloat those numbers, they're just not going to get the trial. In other words, honesty is punished. Maybe when you are a beginning site, and maybe you're going to have to be a little ambitious with your numbers in the beginning. But keep in mind, the more ambitious you are with the numbers, the less likely you'll succeed, and the more likely your reputation will be trashed. So, as soon as you can in these feasibilities, answer them as honestly as possible so that the sponsors can sit there and they'll be like, okay, well, we know this site, we worked with them before, and we know that everything's going to be okay with them. Finally, and this is super important, it goes back to that question, if it's not a good fit, discontinue that feasibility as soon as possible. And I know some people think it's a lost business opportunity, but I'm trying to tell you, you're much better off cutting it loose and then focusing on the ones that are positive, the really, really good ones. And there I'm back. Hello, everyone. In case you wanted to see me, I'm still here. So, okay, so that is feasibilities. We have concluded the learning part of the show. What'd you think? Do you have any comments on feasibilities? How would you address some of these challenges in feasibilities? And what am I missing? There's so much more in the book. We don't have hours and hours on end, but um, that's pretty much how the feasibilities happen. Coming up next after feasibilities, we'll be going right down the line. After this feasibility, we'll probably be going into PSSVs and SQVs where the site and the sponsor are interested in working with each other and they start to schedule time to continue the discussion, to dive a little deeper, to understand and validate the answers from the feasibilities. So if you have the book, read up on that. We'll be doing that at the next episode. Okay, everyone, the big announcement. You probably saw the spoiler alert, but we have a very special case study today. And I'm going to swap out this in just a moment. But if you're on LinkedIn, you already know about it, but we'll give you a little bit more detail about it here. Welcome to the big announcement. Maybe it's not coming. Man. There we go. Big announcement. Bam. So a big congratulations and a big thank you to Mr. Brad Hightower. You're right. That's correct. So Brad Hightower and I have worked together. We have collaborated on a legitimate peer-reviewed article. That's right. So welcome to the article, Consistent Financial Practices at Community Sites Improve Performance and Sustainability. It's a case study of validated practices at a community clinical research site, peer-reviewed and published in the Journal of Clinical and Translational Science through Cambridge Press. That's right, everyone. A legitimate case study, start to finish, 2 years of research, collecting data, identifying best practices through audits, validating those practices, and identifying impact as a result of those specific to the data. A big, big undertaking. It took years to write and it took years to analyze and understand. If you followed me through CRPN World throughout the many, many years, we've had the opportunity to, you'll probably see a lot of this is familiar. And you may have seen it thrown all over the place, but you've never once seen it in a single place where not only was there an intervention done, but also a complete impact that was validated. So This is the pre-proof. Expect the prettier version. If you like pretty things, it'll come out. But here's the content. It won't be changing a whole lot. And apparently, my home address is here. So if you want to send me a Christmas card, there you go. It's right there. I'm going to read this for you, and you can read it on the screen with me. But this is very, very exciting for the team. This is interesting. What do you think, everyone? I'll just come up here. All right. Community research site finances continue to emerge as substantial topics of concern. Financial management solutions are possible, however, they must be continuously managed and incorporated to realize optimal business quality. The current case study assessed key financial metrics prior to and 1 year following a clinical research site's financial review and implementation of improved practices. Financial activity and sustainability metrics were collected and assessed. Staff were interviewed prior to and after the financial review. Results analyzed differences in processes to further elucidate impact and explore best practices. Following review and best practice implementation, the site realized not only an immediate improvement in record management and an increase in revenue realization, but also a substantial increase in 12-month metrics. Fewer visits were performed year to year. However, management improvements yielded overall revenue and accrual increases. The site owner and staff members noted a relief and excitement when finance is everybody's job. I wonder who the author is, everyone. The cultures were adopted throughout site departments. Newly established and financial processes demonstrated an immediate improvement in site sustainability and, when routinely managed, stabilized monthly finances during lower visit periods. Future studies may assess long-term effects of financial management to analyze each financial component for process refinement and optimization. A big congratulations and a big thank you to everyone who helped to make this publication possible. My big challenge to each and every one of you out there: read it, shred it. If you think you can do better, do it. Tell me what you think a validated financial practice is. How would you measure a healthy finance at a site beyond what's here? What are we missing? I know for a fact that this can be improved. This was the first step. And I hope that for every single one of you who read it, it can start the conversation so that we can identify how we as an entire industry can come together, think about the needs of our stakeholders, and make things better. Huge, huge thank you. Please take a look. And I did talk to Brad about this. He might be bringing this up on Note to File tomorrow. And I think that we'll be scheduling a time we can talk about this, maybe even if not for the pre-proof, when the final proof comes out. So really, really big thank you. I'm super, super stoked about this opportunity. There should be, let's swap back over here. Yes, so there it is. Journal article, legitimate. It's an open access. Please feel free to, there's the QR code for it. If you'd like to read the abstract, download the PDF, be a part of the conversation. It's right there for everyone to see, and ask your questions. Let's see. And I can't wait to hear how Brad feels about it as well. So, all right. So we are at 35 minutes. That's about where we're averaging out, even with some of the technological errors. I do apologize about those errors. We're working on ways to improve that. Thank you so much for our comments. Mitch, so glad you're here, you're listening in, man. I appreciate it. And Jesse, if you need help with that, let me know. Let's see what we can do to help with that. But on that note, there's the website. Learn what CRPN does. It's free for sites to join. Welcome to the community. There's the YouTube channel. There's now, I think, over 430 videos dedicated to clinical research. Hopefully that can help the folks out there. There's LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out, connect, be a part of the community. But importantly, everyone, we're all in here together. That's the whole point of TrialSide Chat. So if you do want to come on and have a conversation, if you have questions, please hop on. Let's have a conversation together. This is Dr. Fox. Please like, comment, subscribe, share your voice. See you next time.